This is Unity's oldest publication, almost 100 years old, and this is actually how I was introduced to Unity about 10 years before I knew there was a church related to it. So this has been a very important part of my life, even before I stepped in these doors. And today our word is thrive, and let's all say the affirmation together. I thrive from the inside out. Just as wildflowers bloom and flourish on a rocky mountainside, my life can thrive in less than ideal conditions. It is not outer but inner conditions that determine our health and well-being. At the center of me is God, the very wellspring of life, the source of all good, all love, all life, and all joy. I am most at peace when I stop struggling to change outer conditions and turn within. I'm going to read that part again. I am most at peace when I stop struggling to change outer conditions and turn within. As I attune to the harmonious vibration of divine love, I feel utmost joy. I experience complete satisfaction as I am filled with the enormity of infinite spirit. I am restored and uplifted. Within me is all the wisdom I need to make loving, life-affirming choices. Within me is all I need to thrive. And from Proverbs 19:8, to get wisdom is to love oneself. To keep understanding is to prosper. To get wisdom is to love oneself. Amen. And let's say this together again. I thrive from the inside out. And I'm going to invite Dan up in a minute. We're going to have our meditation song, Breathe Through Me, and then Dan is going to lead us in our meditation and our message. What's the point? Welcome, Dan.
So just take a very deep, centering breath. And then focus on the exhale. Exhale the week. All of the stuff of the week. Exhale all the stuff that's not true. Any anxiety, any worry, any fear, any anger, any irritation. Exhale it away. Sometimes we forget the exhale, to let go of the old. And as we let go of the old, we open to the new, the fresh. And as you breathe in the fresh energy from the creator of the universe, the creator of the cosmos, the creator of each and every one who's in this room. And that force that flows through you is called many names. In Japan it's Ki, China it's Chi, India it's Prana, and here we call it life force, or Charles Fillmore called it divine substance. And as you allow that to flow through you, take your spiritual eye and look up. Jesus said, when your eye is single, your body fills with light. Let that light come in to your mind, into your heart, and into your belly. And it's in the silence that we feel the energy, we feel the love, the divine. It's only when we quiet the mind and the body and the emotions. And many times it helps to have a symbol, so I ask you in your mind's eye to go to the sun. And feel the energy that's flowing out of Father, Son, into the top of your head, into your heart, and into your belly. Feel the energy in your love, in your heart space, and where the love resides in your body. And then I'm going to ask you today to push a little bit further, and I want you to go beyond the sun, to the sun behind the sun. And connect with that in your imagination. And let that divine love fill your head, fill your heart, and fill your body. It is from this place that we begin to overflow with love. But first we have to fill ourselves. And I'm going to ask you today to push one more time. And that's to go to the sun, beyond the sun, beyond the sun. And allow that divine love to flow into every cell of your being. Every cell. Some say there may be 4 to 5 trillion. But let every cell in your being light up with divine love. They even might start to dance and smile. That's a good thing. And as you feel that energy now, I'm going to be quiet for a moment, and I want you to really feel it in your heart. Feel that connection to the Almighty that created all. And know that it's all good. As Emerson said, we all are inlets of God, but we get to choose if we're an outlet. That's the free will that we have. And so from your heart, let the concentric rings of love go out. Go out to everyone in this room. Go out to everyone, 7.2 billion on this planet. And then let it begin to go back to the sun, behind the sun, behind the sun. And that completes what the Taoists call the perfect circle. The love, the peace and joy that goes beyond the human, mental and emotions. And as you allow that energy to come back into your heart space, that energy is there for you for the rest of your life. To extend to others and to love yourself, as we heard with Kate. It starts with loving yourself. And so it is. Namaskar. But I think I'm done. That was enough message for one day. What's the point? Yesterday I had the pleasure to be around the amazing folks who were doing the yard sale. And when I was ready to leave, Tom looked at me, Tom Jones, as only Tom can, and he says, "Have you figured it out yet?" And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "Have you figured out what the point is you're talking about tomorrow?" And then Dee said to me, "Dan, all you got to do is stand up and say the question, 'What's the point?' and sit down and be quiet for 25 minutes, and that's all we would need." I didn't have the courage to do that. It was a great idea. I do life coaching, and I have two major questions that I always ask. And the first one I ask is, so what's important to you? What do you want out of life? And I get 9 out of 10 times I ask that question, I get a list. I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be poor. I say, no, that wasn't the question. The question is, what do you want, not what you don't want. And just that change begins to change what happens within us. And quite honestly, it's right in alignment with what Charles and Myrtle taught over 100 years ago. Deny, release, everything you don't want, or that isn't true, and affirm what you do want, that is true. I mean, that's basically what unity started with as the basic principle. The second question then I ask is, what's the point? Once you begin to understand what you want in your life, the question then is, what's the point? And what's the point? Is an extremely powerful question. It will help your life transformation, it will help your spiritual life, it will help your relationships, it will help your relationship with money. If you can begin to answer that question, let me give you an example. If I can't answer the question, what's the point of my relationship with beloved Jacqueline, and she can't answer it about me, there's a good chance that we won't get through the difficult times. Or if you can't answer the question, what's the point of attending unity or practicing the 5 principles? If you can't answer those, little stuff's going to come up around life, and you go, that's not working. So what's the point is so important as a question. And here's what what's the point does for us. This is like a booby trap. I got it between the post and this. If I fall over, that's the point. What's what's the point question moves us from confusion to clarity. Confusion. Anybody ever had overwhelmed, confused thoughts? This question will begin to move you out of that. And if you begin to get clear and get clarity and get focus, stuff starts to happen, and it's good stuff. One of my mentors back in the day in the corporate world that I went to his training and read all his books was Stephen Covey, Dr. Covey. And he wrote a very famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he said the number one he felt was probably the most important was start with the end in mind. The end in mind. Think about how clear that is. Because if I know where I'm headed, number one, I'll know when I arrive. That's pretty important. And number two, I won't go down all the rabbit trails along the way. Rabbit trails are confusion or overwhelm. So starting with the end in mind, and what's the point will get you to that place. What's the point? One of the most powerful spiritual transformational tools that I use in my coaching business and for my own life. I go to Walmart. It's $4.69 for a 5-subject spiral notebook. Now, some people write prayer journals. That's good. Some people write gratitude journals. That's good. Some people just capture the day, and that's good too. But what I do with my clients is say, right across the top, when you have an issue, what's the point? Now, sometimes I don't get the answers immediately, but I get them a day or two later. They show up. And here's the thing, we don't trust ourselves enough to ask ourselves. Because we really don't quite believe we are God within. If I ask myself, what's the point? I'm asking God, what's the point? And all of a sudden, confusion goes away and I begin to move to clarity. And from clarity, I get single-minded focus. And I can begin to know how to move forward and go to the next step. Sorry. I forgot to point. I've had a couple very important what's the point moments in my life. And one of them I want to tell you about today because it changed completely the trajectory of my life. 28 years ago, I was a sales manager. And we were coming from Baltimore back towards Lancaster, Pennsylvania by way of York. And we were on I-83 North. And he had just gotten for himself a new Lexus. Now, it wasn't a brand new one. It was a couple years old. It was the sporty model, and this thing was fly. It could fly. And he was like so proud of it. He wanted to show me what was happening. And we were going probably 85, 90 miles an hour, up 83 in 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Not a lot of traffic. And we crested the top of the hill. And all I saw was huge yellow construction equipment at the back. Found out later there was a bridge they were working on, and both lanes we were in on 83 North were shut down. And all I could see was lines of red taillights. About a third, I guess, up the hill. Tom's driving, and all I'm hearing is, he went into complete and total shock on the wheel. I mean, he bodily shut down. And I'm sitting there, and I remember saying to myself, today is the day I die. And what flashed back to me is one of my favorite movies. I've only seen one movie 8 times, and that was Billy Jack. And Billy Jack said, today is a good day to die. And that went through my mind. And I said, this is my day, and it's a good day to die. Something happened inside that Lexus. There was this golden white presence that filled the car. I was completely calm. I never hyperventilated. That was my thought. Today's a good day to die. I reached over, it was the sports model, and I reached over here and pulled the emergency brake so hard that it bent 90 degrees and the top actually broke off. And the car spun 180 degrees and we're careening down 83 North backwards. And the next thought in my mind was, there is a gas tank between me and what we're about to hit. And this is a fireball about to happen. And I was so calm, I was so conscious, And something happened with that presence that moved us against the guardrail. As I'm telling you the story now, I can feel the vibration, I can hear the noise. And we rode the guardrail down, and all of a sudden there was nothing but silence. Total, deafening silence. Except for Tom next to me, hyperventilating. He was totally out of control. And all I could think then was, this metal's got to be hot. And there's still a gas tank, and this thing's going to explode. I finally got myself out. I had to pull him across the bucket seats. And I got him up far enough, I thought, from the guardrail in case it blew up. And I looked over the guardrail, and all I saw was a couple 100 feet straight down into rocks. And somehow that car rode the guardrail, and we came to rest about 10 to 12 feet from the back of the car. The two cars sitting there. And I remember looking up, and in the back of one of the cars, all I could see is two little tiny heads of two children. I had to find out what was happening. I mean, all this commotion, this car is coming down at 80 miles an hour on a guardrail. Sparks were flying and crazy. And somehow, some way, we stopped. Physically, physics-wise, none of it made sense. That was a what's the point moment for me. It was 28 years ago. And I learned three things from it. Number one, I know without a shadow of a doubt that there is a presence, one power bigger than me. I didn't hear it from a preacher. I didn't read it in the Bible. I didn't read it in a book or go to a seminar. I lived it and I felt it and I saw what happened. I consciously observed a force that I had no idea what it was. It made a difference. But not only in my life, it made a difference in those children's lives and in Tom's life. Believe it or not, later on, we got the car did not blow up. I was able to get back in the car, again from the passenger side, with Tom basically passed out the rest of the way. And we got back to Lancaster. I was able to drive that car away. Now the door was melted shut. I mean, I had to replace that whole side. The second thing that happened for me that day is I lost all fear of death. Because I was there. I saw it happening to myself. I actually celebrated and said, okay, it's a good day to die. And it's been an amazing thing what that has done for me. I've been present with 300 people that I know. At the last moment, they took their last breath, and they transitioned back to the Spirit. I was there. I was there when the last breath happened. And because I had no fear, neither did they. And it's one of the greatest gifts you can give anyone who's transitioning, to be able to be there and be present, be loving, and let them transition in peace. So many people want to try to make them hold on. It's not the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is just offer all love. And they will pick up on your energy. And the transition will be very quiet and very calm. And guess what, folks? It's very natural. It's as natural as being born. We all do it. I came into the room the other week, and Arian Huffington from Huffington Post was being interviewed by Oprah. And any of you have seen her Super Soul Sunday, she always asks the big question. What is God, and what about death? And Arian Huffington looked at her with this little smile, and it was the best definition I've ever had of death, and I got to pass it on. She said it's like driving up to the airport, dropping off your old used car, and you get to fly away. That's the best definition I've heard. And the third thing that happened for me was what's the point moment, where I began to ask, why did this happen for me? Why 28 years ago did something intervene in my life, this incredible power and the peace that I had, and it changed the trajectory of my life. I wanted to access that again consciously. So I began to do Reiki and Qigong and craniosacral therapy, and I began to study all the world religions. Now, as Jacqueline will attest, I'm a little intense. I made a commitment to read every Holy Scripture in the world. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. I figured I would get it on the 3rd time. I read the start of the Bible from cover to cover 3 times. Course in Miracles, cover to cover. And then it went to the Quran, the Torah, the Kabbalah, Bhagavad Gita, and the Tao Te Ching. And many I probably can't. But what I found in that whole study for me was one power, one presence, different names. That's all.
That's what I'm talking about.
Give it a different name. Just like they call a chair a different name in Chinese than they do in Japanese than they do in English. It was the only difference. The Taoists called God Wu Chi. One power, one presence. One power, one presence. And all good. And out of that is when I sold my investment business, went into life coaching, and ended up here at Unity. I had another what's the point moment. About 6 months ago, I was heavy into this class, and I'm telling you, coming out of Unity Institute, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of writing, it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of work. And I was in about 2 or 3 classes. I don't know if you've ever had this when you're on a project, but I woke up one day and I just said, what's the point? I don't want to do this anymore. Too much reading, too much this, I can't see any end in. I'm done. I'm done with it. And Jacqueline, in her quiet wisdom, said to me, why don't you just finish the 2 you already paid for? I thought, okay, that sounds like a pretty good plan. That's what I'll do. But in that process, I went and got my very, very, very expensive spiritual tool. Orange, $4.69 at Walmart, 5-subject spiral notebook. And I began to write, what's the point of doing this? And I kept doing that. And over 3 or 4 days, I finally got clear again, what's the point? But it took me that process to be able to get there. And I want to share with you what I discovered there. Some of this may work for you, some of it isn't. I offer it to you. What works for you, take. What doesn't, let it go. Here's the first thing I learned. I can't see that very good on the bottom, but my training has been all around mental and emotional work. Physical, mental, emotional. What I call the third dimension, the 3 dimension. You know, I did NLP and I've done hypnosis and emotional freedom technique, cranial psych. All of it was around the 3 dimensions. And as I'm learning to metaphysically study the Bible, and in Revelations it's really interesting because there in the Apocalypse, it talks about 4 horsemen. And everybody, a lot of people interpret it literally, and they say it's about when the end time comes. Well, I should begin to understand it from a metaphysical standpoint. It's talking about the 4 bodies of you and of me. The physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And what I was doing with my Unity training is that I was staying in these 3 dimensions. Mental and emotional, and I wasn't moving to the 4th dimension, the dimension of the spiritual. That was the first thing I learned. What's the point? The second thing I learned is that what the work we do at Unity is about moving our consciousness in the here and now to a better place, to go a little bit higher. Right? Isn't that what we're doing? Y'all, if you don't get that point, why are you sitting here? I mean, that's what it's about, right? We got better things to do for an hour and a half on Sunday, or during the week, or get the books, or do all those things. But if we're not actually seeing movement to a higher consciousness, now, I love to define words. Consciousness for me is everything you think, everything you feel, all your beliefs, all your attitudes, and everything you do. So I better pretty well sum it up. A little easier than consciousness. We throw these words around sometimes, and we don't really kind of get what it's talking about. But what I got when I did the work was it's about changing who I am today to a higher place. And I think that's what we all want for the world, not just ourselves. That's the point. But here's what else. As I told you, I have no fear of death, and I've been there with people, and I've watched the energy, and I have some energy intuitiveness. I see dark and light energy. I don't see lots of colors. But when I was there with them, out of them went energy. And the way I've defined it now in the paradigm of unity, their soul left. Their soul went to the next level. And that's all you get to take. You don't take any money. You don't take any clothes. You don't take any houses. You leave the way you came with nothing but your soul. And the work that we do here today and tomorrow and the next week and the next year will determine what happens in the next level of transition. This is my belief. It doesn't have to be yours. Remember I said, take what works, drop the rest. But I believe that's all we get to get out of here with is our soul. And so the point of all the work is that we want to see, now this is Jesus' words, heaven on earth now. Not when you transition. That's not what he taught at all. He taught you can have it here and now, in this eternal moment, in this present moment of time. And to me, that became what's the point? I listened to Jack, went back to work, and I'm now 80%. He's a slow learner, but sometimes he does get it. And now I'm about 80% finished with my coursework, and I have realized finally, after 61 years, that I am committed to go the next step and become a Unity minister. So I got clear on what's the point. And that took me out of confusion into clarity. This is one of the most misused or refused to look at, I believe, in a metaphysical way. Scripture in the Bible. Paul told the church in Philippi, who was having all kinds of problems consciously. And what he said to them, and Paul sometimes could just get to them. He said, work out your own salvation. Work it out. I know this stands against a lot of people's earlier teaching. But if you really metaphysically look at what Paul was talking to the folks in Philippi, it was you get to work it out. And when you follow that train of thought and you realize the creator of the universe gave you and I one thing different than anything else he created, and that's free will choice. I get to choose whether I want to work it out. And I don't believe Paul here was talking about the day you transition back to spirit. He's talking about today and tomorrow and the next day. Work it out. That's the point. And if you move from that, there's no more room for blame. I can't blame Kate for how bad I feel today. Even though she might have sent me an email I didn't like. She doesn't. No, she doesn't. But I can't blame her. I've got to work it out. It's not about the email I got from Kate. It's about my reaction to it. And that's where I've got to work it out. Time's almost up. Out of this, what's the point that I was going through about my licensed Unity teaching curriculum? I'm a huge fan and student of Emma Curtis Hopkins. Emma Curtis Hopkins is called the teacher's teacher. She was Charles and Myrtle Fillmore's teacher. She was Nona Brooks and Melinda Kramer from Divine Sciences teacher. She was Ernest Holmes, Science of the Mind's teacher. The woman was divinely genius. In the 1800s, she came up through Mary Baker Eddy, Christian Science, was the editor of the magazine. She began to do some other research, and Mary Baker Eddy threw her out of the organization. She moved to Chicago because she was told to. Now this is a little woman. I mean, I want you to get this in context. This is 1800s, early. No one could vote. She could not vote in this country. This is prior Civil War. And this woman heard a voice from God that said, move to Chicago. And she did. Her husband and son left for a little bit, and then he forced her to move back. She was either from Vermont or New Hampshire, a little farm up in the country. This woman taught 50,000 people in Chicago. 50,000. You know, the guy who did 12-step program, Bill W., he came in the last part of her life just before she transitioned to her farm. And a lot of what 12-step now has came from Emma Kurzweil. She has impacted amazing. So I've read every book that she's written, except for Bible interpretation. She has 28 of them. I'm through, I think, 7 or 8. I have 20 more to go. But she's an amazing woman, and the way she interprets the Bible is beyond anything I've ever seen. So I took to study that. I said, okay, and this is I'm one of those hands-on, gotta have a process person. You know, don't give me all the hoopla. I want to make it real in my own life. And so in studying her, what I got from her was this process. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer it to you again today. If it works for you, use some of it. If it doesn't work for you, let it go. But I can tell you it has been phenomenal for me to be able to begin to make the transition away from the physical, mental, emotional, the 3 dimensions, and begin to go into the 4th dimension. And the 4th dimension is where things start to happen. Things beyond what you can conceive mentally. Here I was working so hard, I was doing denials, and I was doing affirmation, and I was doing visualizations, and I was doing everything Charles and Myrtle's talked about, and more. And I was like stuck. That's where I got to what's the point. But out of that came what I was missing is I wasn't moving to the 4th dimension. I didn't move to the level to allow Spirit or God or the divine or the Almighty or whatever word you want to use and allow that to work through me and allow that to become the change in my subconscious so that those old beliefs and habits and the way I react to the world begins to change. And here's a quick test I have for you. If you can look back 6 months or a year and you don't see any change in the way you were reacting to the world, if you're still reacting and not responding, if you're not looking at other people differently than you did then you have missed the point. You really have. You're either not doing the work. This is what I love about Charles Fillmore and practical spirituality. Practical means practice. We've got to practice it every day. And then it begins to impact the way we live our lives. And that's, to me, this whole new thought and what Charles and Myrtle brought, and we've gotten away sometimes from what they were actually teaching. But that's what they were teaching. It's out of that as we begin to see transformation. Transformation of the subconscious and of the conscious mind, or the total transformation of your consciousness and the way you interact with the rest of the world. So this is what I have put together from numerous of Emma Curtis Hopkins' books. And this is the process that I began to practice about 6 months ago. Breathe. We all know how to do that. We do a lot of that here. One suggestion I have is before you take a great big in-breath, always exhale. Get rid of the old stuff. Okay? Then breathe in and new. Let that refreshing new come in. The second one is to look up. Emma Curtis Hopkins is the first one I want to give her credit for. It's not mine. She said that anytime Jesus ever did a miracle, he looked up. Now he looked up with his eyes closed. He looked up with his spiritual eye. And he called it the third eye. Right here in the middle of your forehead. If you have your eyes closed and you look up 20 degrees, we now know through science that it activates the pineal gland in the center of our brain. And the pineal gland is what connects us with the spiritual realm. 1800s, before the Civil War, this woman knew this. How? I don't know. It certainly wasn't in the writings. She got it, the only way I can figure it out is divine. Through a divine wisdom. And the third is, as you get quiet, somewhere between your heart and your solar plexus, there's a little, some people call it a blue white flame, some people call it a light. Emma Curtis Hopkins says it's the pinpoint of the Christ light. And it will not activate until you activate it consciously. We say, I see the Christ in you and the Christ in me and all that. But that's only potential. Hitler had the potential to be the Christ. I don't think he connected too much with the Christ light. And we see other people today around us. But each and every one of us gets the opportunity. We get free will choice. Nobody has to become the Christ here. But you have the opportunity to make a choice and begin to let that transform what's going on in your life. And the third is to make a statement to the universe. And here's how I say it. I put a blank in there for your name. I am Dan Landis, the Christ, the Son of the living God, or the child of the living God. Where does that come from? Right before the end of Jesus' life, he turned to his disciples and he said, who do people say I am? And they said, you're the rabbi, you're the high priest, you're all these things. And Peter is a symbolism of faith in the Bible, in the New Testament, and he turned and he said, and Peter's very direct, and he said, teacher, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he turned to him and said, you could not know that by human understanding. I'm paraphrasing. You could not know that from the physical, mental, and emotional realm. Good for you. You are at the fourth level dimension, and you're understanding what I am all about. I came here to show everyone that they had the potential to be the Christ. And what Emma Curtis Hopkins says, you've got to get bold. You've got to get courageous. You've got to be willing to stand there and say that. And I'm going to tell you this, my old upbringing, I was raised Mennonite. When I first said that the first time, I was waiting for the bolt. It really did. There was something inside of me that said, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing here? You pushing the envelope here too far, buddy. But as I began to work with it, I understood what she was talking about. So I'm going to offer it to you. I've asked Sue to play the piano for us just quietly, and I'm just going to take you through the exercise. If it fits for you, try it. If it doesn't, let it be. Okay? Fair enough? All right. Just take a moment and, again, go back to breathing. Breathe out. Exhale all the guilt. Exhale the worry and the fears that Dan Landis may have just brought up right now. It's okay. Let it go. Let it go. Just continue to breathe. Centering inside your body. And one of the great commands that I use, that the Master Jesus used in the storm came up. Peace, be still. Peace be still to your mind. Peace be still to your emotions. And peace be still to all your thoughts. And now look up with your spiritual eye. Look up and connect with the divine golden white light. We can only feel the energy in the stillness. Let the energy flow. Peace be still. And with your imagination, between your heart and your solar plexus, find the light, find the Christ light. It may be a little flame, it may be a pinpoint of a light. This is your connection with the divine that lies potential in every human being that ever existed. Find that place. Feel it. Don't think about it. I want you to feel it. Feel it. Let it expand. It expands upon your attention. It expands upon your intention and your imagination. And let it grow. I will tell you from my experience, it's cumulative. The more times you come back, the more it grows, the more you can feel. 3 times. But not only to the universe, but to our own selves, to our own subconscious and conscious mind. Because this is the truth about you. So to yourself, just follow along. Use your name. I am Dan Landis, the Christ, the child of the living God. Feel that into Christ-like. Know that to be your truth. And it's the truth in the universe. And again, I am Dan Landis, the Christ, the child of the living God. Yes, you are. It's the truth. One more time and a third time. I am Dan Landis, the Christ, the child of the living God. And so it is. Namaste.